There are moments in every life when waiting feels like the greatest burden of all. We wait for prayers to be answered, for doors to open, for storms to pass. And in that waiting, it can seem as though time itself conspires against us, stretching each day into an eternity, whispering doubts into our hearts, making us wonder whether the silence means we have been forgotten. But waiting is not wasted, waiting is not absence, waiting is not God's refusal. Waiting is preparation. A seed waits in the darkness of the soil before it breaks into light. The child waits in the womb before the cry announces new life. Even the stars, though ancient and radiant, were once hidden in clouds of dust before they burned in glory. If creation itself is trained in the art of waiting, why should our lives be any different? Victory is not born in haste. It is formed slowly, almost invisibly, in the quiet places where patience is tested. Think of a soldier who endures training that feels endless, where the battle seems far away and the discipline is tiring. Yet without those days of waiting, he would not stand victorious when the true fight arrives. So it is with us. Our waiting seasons are the silent battlefields where strength, character, and faith are forged. What we call delay is often divine strategy. The door that is shut is not shut in cruelty. It is held closed until the right moment, when the path behind it will no longer harm us but lift us. The victory ahead is not small, not ordinary, and so the preparation cannot be rushed. Waiting is heaven's way of aligning us with the weight of the blessing to come. And here is the truth. No season lasts forever. Just as winter must give way to spring, and night must surrender to dawn, so your season of waiting must yield to the season of victory. The silence will break, the door will open, what seemed barren will bloom, what felt like chains will become wings. Do not despise the waiting, for when the victory comes, it will not merely end your waiting, it will prove why you had to wait. The triumph will be greater because of the struggle, and the joy deeper because of the silence. Waiting is not the opposite of victory, it is the soil from which victory grows, so take heart. Your waiting is not the story's end. It is the hidden chapter that prepares the greatest one, and now the page is turning, the long night is yielding to morning. Your season of waiting is turning into a season of victory. Waiting is not a punishment, it is God's preparation for the weight of the blessing ahead. Waiting is never an easy task for the human heart. We live in a world that rushes, a world that longs for immediacy, where patience is treated as weakness and delay is seen as failure. But the seasons of waiting we endure are not a sign that we have been forgotten, nor are they evidence of punishment. Rather, they are times of preparation, when something deeper is being built within us, something unseen that will sustain us when the blessing finally arrives. Waiting is not wasted time, it is time being used to make us capable of carrying what we once thought we were ready for, but truly were not. Consider the way a blacksmith prepares a sword. The iron is heated, hammered, cooled, and reheated again. The process is long, repetitive, and painful to watch, but it is not needless. Without the fire, the metal would be brittle. Without the hammering, it would lack shape. Without the waiting between each step, it would never hold its edge. In the same way, our waiting seasons are the fires, the hammering, and the cooling of the soul. They strengthen us, shape us, and give us endurance for what lies ahead. Too often, we confuse preparation with punishment because we do not see the full picture. A child may think it cruel to be told to study while others are playing outside, yet later that same child understands that discipline is what opened the door to greater opportunity. In our impatience we may cry out, asking why doors are closed, why answers have not come, why the silence stretches on. But it is in that very silence that we are being refined, matured, and made ready. What looks like denial is often protection. What feels like delay is divine strategy. The truth is that the blessing we long for is often far greater than we can imagine. To receive it without preparation would not only overwhelm us, it might even destroy us. A harvest that comes too soon is wasted. A foundation that is too shallow cannot hold the weight of a building, so it is with our lives. The waiting season deepens our roots, strengthens our faith, and enlarges our vision so that when the moment comes, we are not merely witnesses of victory but participants who can sustain it. Patience is not passive, it is active trust. Every day of waiting is a day where trust is exercised, where faith is stretched, and where hope becomes stronger than fear. Even though it feels slow, every moment is forming something in us that speed could never produce. The waiting itself is proof that what is coming carries weight, and if the weight is heavy, then the preparation must be great. That is why waiting is not a punishment, it is God's preparation for the weight of the blessing ahead. What feels like delay is often divine strategy, aligning you with the right time and place. What feels like delay is not always delay at all. To us, it may look like time wasted, doors locked, or opportunities missed. But in truth, it is often a carefully designed strategy. We measure by hours and days, but heaven measures by seasons and purposes. The path we long to walk may not yet be ready, or perhaps we ourselves are not yet ready to walk it. When things appear to move slowly, it is not because God has lost control, but because He is aligning details we cannot see. The unseen pieces are falling into place so that when the time arrives, everything will converge in perfect harmony. Think of a symphony before the music begins. The musicians tune their instruments, the conductor raises his hand, and the audience sits in silence. To someone unfamiliar with music, it may seem like unnecessary delay, as if nothing important is happening. But the truth is that every sound, every pause, every gesture is necessary, so that when the music finally begins, it is not chaos but beauty. So it is with divine timing. What feels like delay to us is the careful tuning of every detail, preparing a melody that could not exist without the waiting. There are times when doors remain closed no matter how hard we push against them. We knock, we pray, we plead, yet the door does not move. Our instinct tells us we are being denied, but the reality is that the door is not ready to open. Behind it, something is still shifting, something is still preparing, and to open it too soon would be harmful. Imagine a fruit picked before its time, beautiful on the outside but sour within. The delay is not rejection, it is protection, ensuring that when the blessing comes, it will be ripe and full, not bitter and incomplete. We are often unaware of the battles being fought on our behalf during the seasons of waiting. What appears to us as silence may in fact be a war in the unseen. Timing matters, alignment matters, and protection matters. The delay allows the path ahead to be cleared, the obstacles to be removed, and the strength within us to be built. When the moment of release comes, it will not be by chance but by design. It will be the right opportunity at the right place with the right strength to carry it through. To the impatient heart, waiting feels like an enemy. Yet when we begin to see delay not as denial but as strategy, our hearts shift. Suddenly, silence is no longer threatening, it is reassuring. It tells us that something greater is unfolding. Just as an architect waits until every calculation is exact before laying the cornerstone, so the divine hand waits until all things align. What feels to us like a pause is in truth the strategy of heaven, ensuring that we arrive at the right moment, prepared, protected, and positioned for victory. Every barren season carries the hidden seeds of future fruitfulness. Every barren season carries within it a hidden purpose, though it rarely feels that way while we are in the midst of it. To walk through emptiness is to wrestle with questions of meaning, to feel the ache of prayers unanswered, to see fields that should be green lying dry and lifeless. Yet even in the places that look deserted, there are seeds lying beneath the surface, silent and unseen. What looks like absence is often the beginning of abundance. The soil does not reveal its work immediately, but in its darkness something is quietly being prepared for the right time to emerge. When we pass through barren seasons, it is easy to believe that nothing is happening at all. Our eyes see only the lack, and our hearts interpret it as failure or rejection. But what the eye does not see is the hidden work beneath. The seed is buried, covered, and invisible, but it is not dead. In fact, it is only by being buried that it gains the power to grow. In the same way, the dry stretches of life are not without meaning. They are wombs of transformation, seasons in which roots go deeper, character grows stronger, and unseen fruit is being formed for a future harvest. Think of the long winter that grips the earth. Trees stand bare, the air is cold, and the ground appears lifeless. Yet beneath the frozen soil, bulbs are waiting, roots are stretching, and the earth is preparing to burst with color once spring arrives. If one judged only by appearances, winter would seem endless and hopeless. But appearances deceive. Beneath the stillness lies activity, beneath the silence lies preparation, and beneath the barrenness lies life that is not yet ready to be revealed. Our lives follow the same rhythm. Seasons that appear wasted are the very seasons that prepare the most beauty. There is also wisdom in the barrenness, for it teaches us to see beyond what is visible. When everything is flourishing, we depend on sight. But when nothing seems to move, we are forced to trust what we cannot see. The dry ground pushes us to cling to promises, to anchor ourselves not in feelings but in faith. In this way, the barren season becomes a teacher, shaping in us a strength that abundance could never produce. When fruit finally comes, we do not take it for granted, for we have known the hunger of emptiness. It is in barrenness that the soil of the heart is broken, softened, and made ready for planting. It is in these waiting times that humility is formed, dependence is deepened, and trust is refined. The very absence we despise is the place where future growth begins. Just as no farmer despairs when fields lie empty after planting, knowing that the seed is at work below, we too must remember that barrenness is not the end of the story. Every barren season carries hidden seeds of fruitfulness, waiting for the right season to break forth into life. The silence of waiting forges strength that noise and haste could never give. The silence of waiting has a way of pressing into the soul more deeply than noise ever could. In the noise, distractions abound, and the mind is carried from one thought to another without pause. But in silence, the questions rise to the surface, the fears echo louder, and the heart is forced to confront what it truly believes. Though uncomfortable, it is in that stillness that strength begins to form. Strength is not built when everything moves quickly and smoothly, but when time itself seems to drag and the silence presses like a weight. Waiting teaches us endurance, and endurance builds a resilience that cannot be shaken by storms. When sound fills the air, there is little space for reflection, but silence creates room for the soul to listen. It is in the quiet seasons that a person discovers whether trust is genuine or shallow, whether hope is rooted deeply or merely floating on the surface. The absence of immediate answers forces the spirit to grow. Muscles only strengthen when they are stretched, and faith only deepens when it must survive the silence. This is why waiting, though painful, has power. It becomes the unseen gymnasium of the heart, where patience, courage, and perseverance are trained. Consider the way trees grow in strong winds. Their roots dig deeper into the soil, anchoring themselves against the force that pushes them. The wind does not weaken them, it shapes them into something immovable. In the same way, silence and waiting do not diminish us. They press us deeper into trust, into hope, into the certainty that what we cannot see is still at work. The very struggle that feels like emptiness becomes the force that grounds us. Without the long silence, there would be no deep roots. Without deep roots, there would be no lasting strength. The human tendency is to avoid silence, to fill it with words, noise, and distraction. Yet silence has always been the place where truth emerges most clearly. The voice of wisdom is rarely heard in chaos. It speaks in stillness. In the quiet, we learn to separate what is fleeting from what endures. We discover that strength is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to stand in it without collapsing. The silence becomes the crucible in which this kind of strength is refined. There is a difference between the strength of speed and the strength of endurance. Speed may dazzle, but it is fragile. Endurance may seem unimpressive, but it outlasts every storm. Waiting is the training ground of endurance. In silence, when no answer comes, when days blur into weeks and weeks into months, the heart either breaks or becomes unbreakable. This is why silence is not empty, it is formative. It forges a kind of strength that noise and haste could never give, a strength that endures long after the silence has lifted. Victory will not just end the waiting, it will reveal why the waiting was necessary. Victory does not simply arrive as an end to waiting, it comes as the revelation of why the waiting was necessary all along. The season of delay, the long nights of silence, the prayers that seemed unanswered, each of these becomes a thread in a greater design, and when the breakthrough comes, the pattern begins to make sense. What once felt like wasted time suddenly appears as a season of training. What felt like loss becomes the soil of wisdom. What felt like abandonment turns out to be preparation for a greater unveiling. The waiting was never separate from the victory. It was the foundation that made the victory possible. A soldier who wins a battle does not credit the fight alone, but also the discipline of training, the long hours of drilling, the repeated exercises that seemed monotonous at the time. Without those unseen disciplines, the victory would never have been secure. In the same way, the triumphs of life are not isolated from the quiet days of waiting. They are born from them. Waiting teaches resilience, patience, humility, and trust, and these qualities become the very weapons that secure victory when the moment comes. To stand in victory without them would be shallow and temporary, but with them, the triumph can endure. There is also a sweetness to victory that could not exist without waiting. A gift received too quickly is often taken for granted, but a gift received after struggle is cherished with depth and gratitude. The years of longing carve out a space within the heart that is filled to overflowing when fulfillment arrives. The joy is magnified because of the sorrow that preceded it. The triumph is brighter because of the darkness it follows. Without the waiting, the victory would not carry the same meaning. The very delay becomes part of the reward, for it sharpens appreciation and deepens gratitude. The waiting also allows us to see with new eyes when the victory comes. What once felt unbearable becomes a testimony of endurance. The obstacles that seemed insurmountable reveal themselves as stepping stones. The tears that were shed become the evidence of how deeply we cared, how fully we trusted, how willing we were to hold on even when the promise seemed far away. And when at last the season shifts, we look back and realize that every moment was part of a process that led here. The victory is not just about what has been gained, but about what has been learned, who we have become, and how our character has been shaped in the waiting. It is a humbling truth that the very things we despised in the waiting season become the treasures we carry into victory. The patience, the faith, the resilience, the wisdom, these are the fruits that endure far beyond the moment of triumph. The waiting season was not wasted. It was transformed into the very substance that made the victory meaningful. The end of the waiting is not simply the arrival of blessing, but the unveiling of its purpose, showing us that the waiting and the victory were never separate chapters, but one continuous story unfolding toward fulfillment.